Now we're headed deeper into Ramallah because a former minister of the Palestinian administration has agreed to meet us and speak to us. We're going to get some more voices as well. He's someone who is regarded as a famous poet. I've known him from before during my university days. He's also a professor, and we're going to be speaking to him along with some others to tell you what I said we were going to do, to get you voices from the other side. Now remember, here in India today, we're reporting what we see, what we hear, both from Israel as well as Palestine. You've seen all of our reportage from Israel, and you will continue to do so in the days and the weeks ahead. And now we're getting you some voices from inside the administrative capital of Palestine. And joining me now is a person whose name is Ehab Bessaiso. He isn't just any politician. He's a person who's been a minister in a Palestinian government not very long ago. He's regarded as one of Palestine's foremost poets. He's also a professor at the Bethlehem University, and he's agreed to see us here in Ramallah. Continuing with the conversation, Ehab, how does one see what happened on October the 7th by Hamas, if not as a terror attack?
Well, in order not to be trapped in the question of violence and the condemnation and the circle of condemnation, what I wanted to say, put things into the context. Gaza was subjected to several bombardments and incursions in the past. In 2021, there was no 7th of October. In 2018, there was no 7th of October. In 2014, there was no 7th of October. In 2012, there was no 7th of October. And in 2008, there was 7th of October. The amount of victims who've been killed as a result of the Israeli bombardments on Gaza actually exceeds the number of 10,000 people enduring all these wars. This, let alone what is happening right now in Gaza, which is, till we speak now, the death toll is about more than 7,000 people that they were killed by the indiscriminate shelling. Now, the question about, we need to put it into a political context. There is an occupation, and this occupation is using all the forces and the measures against the Palestinian people to undermine the right of an independent state. Having said this, it doesn't mean that the Palestinians, they are kind of killing cheer holders or something, or just waving for this. The Palestinians in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem and in Gaza, they are just seeking some kind of an international acknowledgement of their pain over the last 56 years, and they just wanted a courageous statement by the international community to say, well, the Palestinians, they deserve their own state. Enough is enough. End the occupation and adhere to international community. So this is the wider context that I think what the Israeli government right now is trying to do is just to shift the public opinion, or the international public opinion, from the question of occupation, which is the core of all the miseries, not only to the Palestinians but also to the Israelis. Yes. And they're trying to focus on one incident happening as if this is just a reflection to the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. No, it is not. It is simply the situation that we need to look at is just to end the occupation. And I think what has been mentioned by Mr. Antonio Guterres, the General Secretary of the United Nations, and being accepted by a lot of international figures, it's something that we need to end the occupation and adhere to international community.
But my second question to Ehab is, Israel has continuously said that this is a war against Hamas and not against the Palestinian people. How would you respond to that? You know, that this is against the Hamas because they perpetrated a terrorist attack, and what happened was widely seen as a terrorist attack in many countries as well. How do you see that? How do you respond as a Palestinian to Israel saying that what we are doing now is in response to Hamas, not the Palestinian people?
Well, I'll be very honest and frank with you on this. We will try to borrow some of the experiences from the past. When the Americans in 2001, they started their bombardment of Afghanistan, they said the same. They said it's not about the Afghan people, it's about the Taliban. to figure out after 20 years, they sat with the Taliban and they set an agreement with the Taliban after a few years. Yeah. They did it with Iraq. Yeah. They said this is not a war with the Iraqis, this is a war with Saddam Hussein. And eventually, the whole killing and the whole misery of the Iraqis, it's still paying the price till now. What I want to say, this is something of a part of a communication strategy. It's part of the deceiving of the whole international public opinion about the core of the issue, which is occupation. This is not about Hamas or the Palestinians. It's about whether Israel would adhere to international resolutions or not. This is a simple, frank question. Hundreds of United Nations resolutions being issued to force Israel to adhere to international law. Why not single one international law have been adhered? This is, I think, the question that we need to seize the opportunity now. Pain shouldn't be the language of the region or the language of the Palestinians or even the Israelis. It is actually justice should be the language. And then what we have to say, we heard from Mr. Biden, the American president, and many of international prime ministers and presidents that they are with a two-state solution. Yeah. Perfect.
Including India.
Including India. Perfect. Okay. What are the measures that need to be taken in order to implement the United Nations resolutions and in order to have the two-state solution? This is a very simple question. Yeah. It's not enough just to issue a statement that I'm supporting a two-state solution. We have to see it on the ground. So seeing it on the ground is something that what we need is to put some pressure on this Israeli government, the occupation government of Palestine, to say, well, implement United Nations resolutions and grant these Palestinians their right to live as normal human beings in the world and to allow them to have at least some kind of a confidence of the future that the international community is respecting their desire to have their own state in Palestine.
But Ehab, final two questions. Isn't what the Hamas has done, isn't that going to make things infinitely harder? Isn't that going to make the ideals of implementing what the UN has said infinitely more difficult? It reboots this entire situation, and if anyone was anywhere close to normalcy or a semblance of normalcy, that's straight out of the window now, isn't it? This has actually harmed the Palestinian people.
Well, we need to refresh our memories a little bit. What happened in 1982 when Israel invaded Lebanon? It was for the same reasons with the PLO at that time. They invaded Lebanon. They put Lebanon in siege for a few months. And what they called Yasser Arafat at that time? That's, the biggest terrorist that we need to get rid of. That happened in 1982. What happened after 10 years of that? Yasser Arafat signed the peace accord with the Israeli Prime Minister at that time, and he returned to Gaza in 1994. So by the end of the day, it depends. I think this is part of, I would say, trying to brainwash the international public opinion that what happened that would never bring any kind of stability. Look, major wars and conflicts happen in the world, even including the Palestinians, as I mentioned in Lebanon in 1982. But then there has to be a political process. You cannot just subject to the killing machine or to the war and to say that it ended up.
So